Peace and blessings, Austin and Greg, Music Man 29. Welcome, assalamu alaikum. Come on in the room, come on in, come on in. Come on in the room. I just wanted to talk about something. I was on 2 lives yesterday. One was actually a philanthropy live where I presented about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House Museum, and the other one was just a live with a group of people talking about relationships. And then this morning, I was on a breakfast live for conscious entrepreneurs, and there's an underlying theme that I noticed. TCTE Enterprises, welcome. Vince Noble 12, 312, welcome. There was just an underlying theme that I noticed, and whenever I see these underlying themes when I'm in these circles, I try to bring them back to you all just for it to be something for you to think about. This may not be something that affects you, but we'll see. I'll share. So Austin and Greg, Music Man 29, TCT Enterprises, Vince Noble 312, let me know where you are from. While we're waiting on folks to come in, just a reminder that tomorrow night we have the Mo Today series on Black Muslim businesses. We have Amila the Builder going to be on. So you should join us 7 p.m. Central Time on the Sajdah Wendy Muhammad YouTube channel. And then Saturday we have episode 5 of the proper handling of people. Somebody emailed me and said, why do you do this? People don't care about how they handle people nowadays. It's all based on, they gave some kind of example. I should have kept it and read it for you guys. They gave some kind of example like there's just other protocols out here and that it doesn't matter. And I said it does matter. It matters what you put out into the world and out into the universe, and whether you're a spiritual person or a religious person, whichever you are. I happen to be spiritual and religious. And I try to, hey, the Monique Lisa, hey you, hey gorgeous, thank you. So I try to keep those principles, and so that's why the proper handling of people is important to me. But anyway, on these 3 shows and these 3 lives, everybody is exploring how to maintain their peace. I found it so fascinating that all of these entrepreneurs are talking about techniques and how do they find peace, how do they maintain peace. And because we were all talking to a bunch of entrepreneurs, I made the assumption that the peace they were talking about was related to their businesses, when in fact that wasn't the case. The peace that they were talking about was their own inner peace, their own personal peace. And I just started thinking and exploring that and just doing some inner work on myself about it and thinking about it. And I wrote down, like, what are the 2 ways in which those people talked about that they as entrepreneurs have issues with losing control and not having peace. One was relationships. And I'm not just talking about, sexual relationship. Monique said, I have to go live on Clubhouse, but so glad I got to see you. You blessed my soul. Oh, thank you, sis. If I have time, I'll jump over on Clubhouse. I've never been successful in catching it when you guys are on. So I'll be on here about maybe 30 minutes or so, and then I'll jump over there and join the conversation if you guys are still there. So anyway, back to this thing about peace. I thought that because they were entrepreneurs, they were going to be talking about employees. I thought they were going to be talking about money or vendors and things like that. But what were they talking about? They were talking about relationships. And it wasn't just like interpersonal or sexual relationships. Oh, okay, for an hour, okay. It was relationships in general, just interacting with people and how people handle them and how they handle others. And I announced, I said, listen, I'm doing a whole series on the proper handling of people and taking what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us about the proper handling of people and bringing that over into the business world. So I said, this may be of value to you, but most of them talked about some interpersonal relationship where they either feel mishandled or they've mishandled others. And they talked about how that disrupted their peace. And I said, I was so curious, and I said, talk to me about what that means. And one woman said, I worry about what this particular person is going to say about me. Another person said, not only do I worry about what this person's going to say about me, whatever they do say, it impacts me. And then I started talking about how we kind of unpacked last Saturday on the Sajdah Saturday Morning Coffee Talks about how a person's, it's a very, there's just thought, let me say it this way, there's just thought patterns and way of thinking that have been long living in our society that we now have to disrupt. Sort of this colonizer way of thinking and way of handling things. And I call the colonizer way of handling people is defining people so that you can confine people. And a lot of that confinement is disrupting people's peace and impacting how they believe they're being handled. What do I mean? Somebody may meet you and say, oh, you're a black man or you're a black woman. That's a package. That's confinement. Somebody else may say, Christopher Unknown 19 and Gracious as God, welcome. Somebody else may meet you and say, you're young, you're a youth. Or somebody else may meet you and say, oh, you're older, you're over 50. And so all of that kind of colonizing type of mindset is to define and package you so that ultimately it confines you. So before I talk about the confinement piece and what I mean by that, I didn't bring my Quran in here, but we talked about it's involuntary gifts. I think it's verse 29 and 30, where it talks about confinement and people having meetings in an effort to confine you. I'm paraphrasing. And so we explored that. And it's a very non-spiritual way of handling somebody. So instead of seeing someone's soul and seeing someone's energy, you look at them and you go, they're a youth, they're elderly, they're a senior, they're over 50, they're under 10, or whatever. You start packaging and categorizing because you want to figure out how to use them. But then here's where the colonizer mindset comes in. Some of us are so ego-driven that we create these categories for people because it's how we want to confine them. So then we know that we're going to base our interaction of that person based on that confinement and those definitions. And do you know that on these 3 podcasts where we were talking about peace, that the majority of the entrepreneurs that were on there talked about this method of thinking disrupting their peace? It just fascinated me because I talk about that all the time. One of the things I personally can't stand when I hear someone try to define somebody, and in their definition of, once they come up with a package and a definition for that person, they then decide how they're going to treat that person based on that package and that definition. That's what we used to do in the corporate world oftentimes when we're interviewing people. What they did back in slavery when they were trying to decide what to do with you once they purchased you. They'd say, oh, she comes from rice farmers, or she should have a gift of healing. And so they package you and define you so that they can confine you to a certain behavior, to a certain space. And this movement among entrepreneurs, especially people who are really stepping out in this day and time to do something for themselves, are people who are just saying, I'm tired of being confined by your definition of me. I think it's just so interesting. One thing that was really big, there was a lot of sexism. People talked about that a lot. But there was a lot of ageism, right? Because people think after a certain age, you're not useless. You don't date anymore. You're not sensual anymore. You're not beautiful anymore. Your value's gone. And so you got people who are going, oh man, I'm 35, I'm 40, I'm no good anymore. But that is a societal definition of you. You don't even figure out, this is what I've been told, you don't even figure out what you're doing in life until you get to the 60s and 70s. So that's why it's important that we take care of ourselves and take care of our bodies, because we die way too young. It's all behind this use and confinement concept that really comes from slavery in this modern world. I think it's been around a long time, but it was used very profoundly in slavery, because your value as a woman and a man went down after you were no longer able to reproduce. So after that, there's, no more like, hey, let's use this person's wise counsel. Do you know, if you sit at the feet of someone who has had experiences and been through what you're trying to go through, let's say you meet somebody and they're 20, 30 years older than you, and you say, okay, I want to be a dancer. Do you know, if you sit with that dancer who's twice your age, they're probably going to cut some time off of your journey to becoming a professional dancer just based on what they know? I tell people all the time, especially young people that I know, and, this language we use with the youth and all of that. Listen, you can sit and talk to me. You want to go into business? Come sit down with me, because I can cut some time off of your journey if you listen, because there's things that I know, right? So I think and so all of these entrepreneurs were saying, look, I decided to do for self because I want to do more. I want to be more. I want to contribute more, and I want to contribute effectively. And I felt like in my corporate position, or in my job, or in the relationship that I was in, I felt so confined. And so I couldn't give the way I wanted to give. I couldn't love the way I wanted to love. I couldn't be the way I wanted to be. I couldn't worship the way I wanted to worship. And so everybody was talking about on these shows how they were just getting away from that. They were running away from it because they wanted to go somewhere where they could find peace. And what I discovered, that in so many cases, we don't have peace because we're either worried about what other people got to say. We are under the control and thumb and influence of somebody that has defined us and confined us, right? That's like being severely overweight, right? And telling somebody, look, I want to run a marathon. And they looking at you like, you ain't running no marathon, you too big. And you're going, no, I want to run a marathon. Instead of that person looking at you going, you know what? What isn't in this person, and what part of their soul can I touch to help them be ready and prepared to run a marathon? It's a simple example. But those of you who are on here, talk to me in the chat about what disturbs your peace and what you do to maintain your peace. And I try my best to control my thoughts about my life and about myself and about outcomes and situations that I'm in. I don't allow myself to be defined and confined by anyone, because I just believe that you can reach a certain point in your freedom space, if you will, where you're interacting, right, with Allah, or interacting with the universe, whatever language you use. You're interacting and you start to get inspirations, and you start wanting to move a certain way, and you start wanting to do certain things. But if you're in a situation where you are defined and confined, then you're not going to be able to fulfill that divine purpose in life. So it's really an epidemic, because those two podcasts and then the one this morning, I actually had not even seen that many people on those podcasts. And I've done those podcasts on several occasions. I had not even seen that many people on there. But when they were talking about peace, how to maintain your peace, I talked about prayer and meditation. I'm someone who's been very blessed to, at a very young age, have a strong awareness of a power greater than myself, and to have been in a position at a very, very young age. I remember as young as maybe 3 or 4, interacting with that power greater than myself, and just kind of exploring and playing around with what I thought my purpose was and is in life. And that became my go-to when people would misdefine me or try to put me in a category. And so having that strong through line, this is for me, with that power greater than myself, it helps me. So that even when people come to me and they're trying to get me to, do something or whatever, I'm real clear on how they likely see me and that they're attempting to define me. And I'm clear on whether or not, if I go with what they're saying, if that's going to impact my interaction with the power greater than myself. But a lot of people said that they never had that sense, that they're getting that sense. I've been meditating, I think, since grammar school. And I can't say I stumbled upon meditation. I stumbled upon meditation as the word in grammar school. But prior to that, I remember just on a regular basis, just sitting and being blessed to grow up in a space where I could just sit with Allah at a very young age, and just kind of take that energy with me. And I remember times when I was a little ashamed and felt a little weird because I used to do that. And when I would not do it, and the mistakes that I made, or the things I got caught up in, or almost got caught up in, because I had stopped doing that. So for me, I had a way in which I found that peace at a very early age, and I always was blessed to know how to get back to that. And so we talked about that a little bit as well, and how as an entrepreneur, one of the biggest challenges oftentimes is that we become entrepreneurs, we go to church or mosque or synagogue or whatever on Sundays, but we go to work and we're engaging in non-spiritual, non-aligning, low vibrational behavior during the week, and then we have that one day at church where we try to, or at mosque where we try to raise our vibration, and that's just not oftentimes really enough. And low vibrational behavior, I don't mean where you're working in some kind of crazy environment or something. I mean, for example, where this type of thinking, this type of mindset is happening. I was always the person who would sit there, Disco Kitchen, welcome. I love that name, Disco Kitchen. Ambest 1, welcome. Robbie Walker, 9028, welcome. Industry 5M, welcome. Euro C 288 Hertz, welcome. Disco Kitchen, y'all know I love disco music. I love me some disco music. It's just happy to me. It makes me feel good. So Disco Kitchen, I like that name. Let me know, where you guys from? Robbie, Ambest, Disco Kitchen, Euro 288, Industry 5M. I think there were more of you on here. Still Demetrius, welcome. Where you from? Gracious is God, I know you. Christopher Unknown, where you from? Lomax Amanda, where you from? Let me know where you guys are from. Vince Noble, where you from? TCT Enterprise, Austin and Greg, Music and Man. Let me know where y'all from. Disco Kitchen is from Chicago. So is Disco Kitchen in Chicago? Buffalo, New York, Industry 5M. I had a client in Buffalo, and it was one of the nicest clients that I ever had. And to this day, I reflect on that client, and even when I hear bad things about Buffalo, and I thought about it, I said, I was in a space when I went to Buffalo on that client. It was in the winter, and it was very difficult to get back and forth and move around between Buffalo and Chicago.